Okay, as mentioned in the Resistance X-Wing build, it's a project I've been meaning to do for the last couple of models, but keeps getting put back. This time we're going to go ahead and do it. What I'll be doing is returning to the, for lack of a better term, universe of Omega 7, and building in 1/72nd scale both one of their present mainstay fighters, namely the F-23 Black Widow, and a possible future for them, or the similarly designed YF-21, in this case from Macross, but I'll be giving it more along the lines of an Omega 7 color scheme, although I may still, given it as a prototype, may still make use of some of the more colorful markings there. As you can see with the DML Black Widow kit, there's not really a lot to it. Of course, this was designed back when it was still the YF-23. The biggest components here are the top and bottom of the body. In the case of the F-21, I got a lot of blue plastic here that's not going to stay blue, of course. It'll wind up in something akin to a traditional Omega 7 color scheme, i.e. the graphite dust top and the bottom with a light gray. In truth, they'll both probably wind up along the lines of what I did with those in 1/144th scale. But with what I got sitting over there is one key shortage in this kit that needs to be addressed. There is no pilot figure. Fortunately, let me flip that around, I have a couple of these 1/72nd scale US pilot ground crew sets. This one still has a couple of pilot figures in it that I can use. That said and done, it's time for me to probably think about getting started on this. Alright, working on the YF-23. As you can see, the cockpit is done. I've got it inserted in the fuselage, but I haven't glued the body of the plane together yet. Didn't do a lot of detailing, but what I did do was I went in and painted the control panels in black, dry brushed them in silver. Most of the rest of the cockpit got a black wash. The panel up here, as well as back here, were painted in with the Vallejo dark gray primer. I also have my pilot assembled and ready for paint. The rest of the plane is pretty much ready to go for final assembly. I've got the engine inserts in, got the intake inserts in. I have also glued in the landing gear doors, which surprisingly actually fit fairly well. I've got to do some touch-up work on the nose gear door from how it glued in, but that's pretty much where that one is sitting. Once I get some paint on the pilot, get the pilot inserted into the cockpit and get the canopy down, also have to glue the body of the plane together. Okay, given the theme of this build is present and future, or possible future, aircraft of Omega 7. Admittedly, I'm not going to use the F-35 yet, but I do need to go further back in history with my own personal development of Omega 7 and add one more plane to the list. That being the hypothetical F-19. This one, admittedly, is the snap type kit, which means
it doesn't have a lot of parts to go with it. In fact, the pilot is even molded in as part of the cockpit piece. But I figured it was only fair, since the original Omega 7 Sigma, which is the designation I gave the fighters because Changewind 1 up there is Omega 7 Tau, and the original Omega 7 Sigma was based on this plane. So I'm going to throw this one together fairly quickly too. This one shows its age in the form of raised panel lines and some serious flash along the edge of the fins. We'll get her together though and put it with the rest of the plane, the other two planes. Alright, what we got here is the pilot for the YF-23 and the pilot for the YF-21. Both have been given red flight suits based off Omega 7's color schemes. The boots, gloves, and helmets have been picked out in German gray, and the figures were both given black washes. The cockpit for the YF-21 is basically done and in the fuselage now. It got a coat of Vallejo gray primer. Consoles picked out in German gray, as well as the control sticks, and then a black wash over the whole thing. The Spectre cockpit, now unlike the YF-21 and YF-23, the pilot was molded as part of the cockpit. So he got a red flight suit, German gray helmet, no real detail on the console. Cockpit itself was painted in Vallejo light gray primer. Again, black wash for detail. Over here we've got the wings and tail wings for the YF-21. The canopy for the YF-21, which is going to need to be masked yet, but it's got, believe it or not, that console, which is glued into, or display I guess would be a better description of it, which is glued into the top of the canopy piece, is actually 3 pieces and took about 3 tries to get in there, because that thing's maybe a 1/4 inch long. We also have the main body of the YF-21 fully assembled now. Obviously this whole thing's waiting paint. Should be getting interesting here. Alright, at this point, assembly on all 3 birds has been finished. Canopies are in place. I've got some silly putty acting as a mask on all 3 canopies. That canopy is a little funky, but then again, it's an anime canopy, so it's kind of expected. Next stop for all these birds is primer. Alright, as you can see, we've got our paint coat on, as well as our gray coat on the bottoms. The top coat should surprise nobody who's familiar with these Omega 7 builds. The bottom is a custom mix of Vallejo gray primers. The top is Tester's graphite dust. I've also printed up the custom markings I'm going to need. For this one, I am going to use some of the stock kit markings, but not like the bright yellow ones. That stuff's not going to get used. But this stage, I've got the sealer coat down. I also went in with a pencil and drew in the lines on the nose gear door because it disappeared. But at this point, ready for markings. Still need to do some detail paint work, but I figure I'll do that after I get the markings down. Alright, at this point, decals are all on. Final detail painting's done. So we're going to call the build done. Starting over here with the F-19 Spectre, the Omega 7 proposed, or sorry, Omega Flight proposed. The only kit supplied decal I used was for the aerial refueling, and I actually wound up having to paint over that because it was too light and was disappearing under the graphite dust. On the back here, on all three of them, I used a custom mix to simulate the burnt metal look on the exhausts. Of course, you've got the custom Omega 7 decals also on the bottom of the plane. You can just barely make out the US insignia. The Omega 7 insignia stands out a little better. Then we go to Omega 7 Present. Sorry, Omega Flight Present. I'll get that right by the time I get this done. This is the F-23 Black Widow. Again, you've got the custom Omega 7 markings, the mix to produce the burnt metal look. That's actually a mix of Tamiya aluminum, Vallejo smoke, and Vallejo dark gray primer. Actually turned out pretty good for what I was trying to do. Got the canopies unmasked. I forgot to mention it there. Again, bottom of the plane, markings show up as well. I don't know what exactly happened there, but I'm not going to worry about it too much at this stage. And moving on to Omega Flight Potential, we have what started life as the Hasegawa YF-21, actually, from Macross Plus. In this case, it's been done over in the same paint scheme as the previous two birds, with the use of a couple of the kit decals just to make it stand out. It's got an unusual cockpit canopy setup, so you can't really see a lot inside. The bottom set up the same way as the others. I lost the clear pieces that go into those side pieces, so I just filled them with the little Elmer's glue. Haven't gone in and repainted them because I didn't really feel the need at this stage. But, as you can see them all together there, makes for an interesting contrast. As per usual, I'll stick some stills at the end of this, and I want to thank you for following along.